guys. I'm here to get into, yes, perhaps my favorite hard rock band of all time, the Stooges. They're number one for me because they perfectly combine psychedelia and punk in the most unique way I've ever heard. So it's the best. It ends up feeling just about like the best feeling of both genres because this is the purest spirit. I feel like, when I was young, it's like bands like, I was listening to ACDC goes, I should have listened to Silver Kitty and the Stooges because these are the best. The Stooges, like, I think it's perfect energy of just whatever you're feeling at any age, it feels timeless. And this is done in a way where it's like, it doesn't feel cheesy whatsoever. It actually just feels natural and organic. And they're just really cool the entire way through. Particularly through their 3 albums. It's just the Stooges self-titled album, Funhouse, and Raw Power. I mean, this is like, and I love a band like Soundgarden. I'm like, I usually come to this band now when I want this energy because this is just a little more pure and to the point about this classic rock feeling, I think. Certainly, it takes influence from stuff like The Doors and Alice Cooper. I think it just literally transcends those two into something even better. And it's so cool. There's just so much of like wonder about this band and the way that the instruments come together. Like, it's just all so heavy and natural. The way Iggy Pop just displays this mystical personality that's so original, just so like fearless. That's what I've tapped into with making this. Like, it has to be fearless. All these songs kind of capture just stuff that just really is kind of to fathom. And the fact that a band can just conjure this much intensity is just really something else. The way this all plays too, it just feels. It's like that feeling where you're feeling kind of antisocial and you just need an outlet for those antisocial moments. So before you kind of relax. And sometimes, those feelings can hit like a moment, but this is like the perfect expression. Another band like Red Hot Chili Peppers fan of these two bands, but I really prefer. I love that this guy's are way better. So it's like this is powerful music to me the entire way through. These dudes just really, I feel like it feels like if you just relate to these guys in a very unique kind of way. Because it's so pure to the point. Much like bands like Black Sabbath too, but I prefer this sound because it's just so it's heavy. And perfect at capturing the depth of the 60s in a way that's timeless. It holds up to every decade. But he's moving forward now. Perfect. It's so perfect right now. Geez, Iggy Pop's a hero. Quite seriously, he is. And the Stooges kind of just capture what garage rock is right on their first album called the self-titled The Stooges, which came out in the year 1969, which just features garage rock at its purest sense because this is kind of like all building up to just what punk is. And this is my favorite version of punk. That's what really the Stooges are. They're an original kind of punk band, you could say. It goes beyond flower punk, even. It's just punk, and it just gets straight to the point. And this tone that's just absurdly awesome. And this is just like the only song here that doesn't really quite land is "We Will Fall," which is kind of one that just drags for about 10 minutes long. But there's just so many chants going on. All these other songs, like "My Wild Love," which is it kind of has Iggy Pop just doing something of a Doors type sort. I quite love this sound even more because Doors feels a little more random and contrasting, kind of recognize. Jim Morrison's a fascinating man before he lays out, but I certainly am grasping the ramblings. So this is more to the point, more relatable. I certainly understand Lester Bangs' perspective on this. I can really relate to it because of the way he says it. It's very true. These Stooges are to the point. It just gets straight to Iggy Pop's just like, amen, and they're there. It just goes. It comes and goes. That's the way these waves feel, these moments of excitement and just youthful enthusiasm. I think that's ultimately the way I would describe the sound. It's youthful enthusiasm captured. In a way, like I kind of see other bands that do this for me, like REM and My Bloody Valentine. I think REM is kind of more of the heartfelt spirit. My Bloody Valentine is just kind of the combination of like Stooges are almost a little more in hell, but they're just freaking feeling so good that they don't even care, and that's awesome to see because they have God in their hearts so well. They express it right in the face of fuel and fire. That's awesome. The Stooges here are just like I always say. Just badass. I think badass is a good word to describe the Stooges. Like songs like "I Want to Be Your Dog" just has this guitar riff that just kind of features all kinds of yelling and just a piano that goes so intensely strong with its energy that it ends up being the best Stooges song to come out in the year 1969. It's so good and it just feels so full of their unique energy and original vibes. While the song 1969 just kind of has all these funny kind of sounds going into it and no fun. It's just something else. Iggy Pop's just full of personality the entire way through. It feels like the original spirit. It's like how Miles Davis is like they laid out the genre, doing it the best. Like I feel like the Stooges do the same with hard rock, the hard rock genre in its entirety. I feel. Kenny perhaps perfectly continues this moving forward in the '90s moving forward, but this is the '70s. This which is just raw, heavy, nihilistic. Jazz influence is going into it. A lot of John Coltrane influence. most certainly sure a lot of Love Supreme was going on in these sessions. But it's just kind of capturing this feeling and even a little bit of funk kind of going into it. Because all the songs just have a groove to it, like it's really cool. Like songs like Little Dog are really cool. But yeah, this one just really has a rockin' spirit to it. That's the best way I can describe the entire thing. Like no fun. Like it just feels like it's groovy, and it just feels like something else entirely. Then you got New York 1970 Funhouse. That's the perfect masterpiece right there, right next to Broadway. This is a genius masterpiece. And yes, it is quite genius in the way it expresses what antisocial emotions are like. The emotions you shouldn't talk about, but you feel inside. In a way, this it just kind of fits in a way, and it just makes sense. Now, going maybe too over, it's almost like they just kind of nail the feeling of just, I gotta rock out for a while, which is insanity. There's a lot of insanity lies a lot of people. It's just a perfectly, I think, genius representation of what an insane headspace warped mind looks, particularly on this album. Because there's just so much experimentation going on in the band. Considering the foundation of the Velvet Underground, a place that I like slightly more. It just grooves the way it feels so real. And it just feels like the guitars are out to burst you in a way. Iggy Pop just works in a way that the rhythm section is just so strong of groove. The funk influence just kind of rocks really, really hard. I mean, this is literally the hardest rocker I've ever heard. It feels very cinematic. That's the way I actually say that. But like songs like Down on the Street just really grab you on the throat. It feels like a jolt just kind of comes right at you. And it just feels like it's just going to bash your head open. But while you're there, it feels so good that you just want to keep going because it's an adventure, man. See, better than Nirvana, I think, too. I think, yeah, this is awesome. And there's a song like Loose, which is about the coolest song. It kind of hits energy similar to like Tombstone Blues by Bob Dylan, where the Tombstone Blues just kind of, I don't know, like Loose just feels like a foreshadow of the song Smoke in the Water by Deep Purple. I much prefer this song because it just makes me want to dance. And the way the guitar riff just comes together, the build up and just execution the entire way through builds forward a TV, which is just a perfect scream, where Iggy Pop is screaming to the Lord, but then it just really kind of rocks your soul the entire way through. It's the best possible way to just kind of have an album like this. I mean, these songs are absolutely classic, and all of these are perfect songs that Iggy Pop is just raving about the guitar work and just looking at the nightmare. Such a good rhythm section that you just want to beat everything. That's the way the spirit is going to kind of ultimately, I think, feel get this album out. Again, the emo energy is coming. It's not like these guys are. They wouldn't be that emo if they were around now. Iggy Pop would totally be an emo. I think that's what I see in a way, but he does it in a way that's just like, I just want to get to it, detached from reality, and I just want to get to it. That's sort of what it's just kind of built up to in time. I want to get some raw drumming kind of going on board for it. Drumming is really a certain, I think, perspective that I'm starting to recognize. I've grown up doing a lot of drumming. I'm certainly back into this unique foundation of drumming, where it's all about the spirit being expressed in a very raw kind of way. But the Stooges are out to express a nightmare in such a beautiful kind of way. Perhaps the best song they ever made is Dirt, which, holy mother, that's the best song maybe of the year 1970. Right on time with Miles Davis's Bitches Brew. Because this is just a totally different song entirely that just kind of has all kinds of screams and whispers and everything going into it. Just feels playing cool. And I mean, dude, it just feels like he's just out, he's hearing what Led Zeppelin's doing. He's just out to do his thing of what Led Zeppelin is in a lot of ways. Which is just I just want to scream all the time kind of thing. He does it right. It's a good kind of eccentric personality. Without somehow he can get really eccentric without being too overboard. That's what's so cool about Iggy Pop. But yeah, if you ever heard the song Dirt, I mean, we have sources like Spotify and YouTube now, the accessible ways to get to all kinds of music. I was really thankful to have this foundation, growing up in so many ways, to discover the joy of jazz like John Coltrane and Miles Davis. I think that all certainly laid out to everything like bands like this. I think more so than the Beatles, perhaps. Most bands are influenced by the Beatles, but this feels more closer to what Miles Davis is saying, which is dark. But man, it's just slipping awesome, honestly, the entire way through. The song 1970 just rocks so hard. You just got all kinds of feeling good, basically. And, that's what he screams. While the saxophone is very influenced by John Coltrane, where it's just going mad. The madness is so good that it perfectly continues the spirit of Love Supreme Gone to Hell, while my Pharoah Sanders represented heaven. This is like hell, and it goes on 8 minutes, and it's just rocking the entire way through. Because it just kind of gets into a lot of what it is to feel dominant about knowing something, but also you'll feel dumb about it later and you know it, but you just got to get it out in your system. It's a certain kind of way. But it feels good. So you got songs like Yellow Blues. It's just, yeah, oh man, it's so ugly that it's awesome. It's just madness being captured. In a way that reminds me a lot of the album Meditations by John Coltrane, which is just, oh man, the saxophone work here. It's just hell amazing. Hell of amazing. It's like, this is like literally foreshadow stuff like the Ramones and the Clash, which I'm going to love the Clash. Ramones are cool. There's some songs I'll come back to and enjoy, but I don't like, not all time favorite territory. Quite like the Clash. But I love Stooges even more still, yeah. They do it perfect. Satire when they get in those moods. And I think it's so essential in knowing. It's hard to be forward if you can't just always be in tune with the satire behind your emotions. Like, know that, like, dude, it's all kind of a comedy. Life's kind of a comedy in the end, you know, and it's like, don't need to ever let yourself something to take it too seriously, which I certainly see is, that's a new one. You know, it's built up for ultimately for my 30s. You take a thing that was meant to be entertainment too seriously. You know, that's crazy. So, but you know what? It is crazy. You get the album, it's awesome. I love the album so much. I highly recommend it for this band. Honestly, I recommend this band to everybody. Just like, everyone's gonna grow up on the Red Hot Chili Peppers, it seems like. Check out the Stooges if you're a fan. They're awesome. The album Raw Power in 1970. Everything perfect is going on here. The Iggy Pop release. David Bowie had a mix of this too. This is way better. David Bowie is just too cheesy in the production. I think Iggy Pop is just way better at just kind of capturing with some amazing kind of pads. I want to be your dog, kind of influence, kind of go in even harder. While taking all the, intense emotions that the Funhouse expresses into something that's perhaps like, this is the most hard-rocking Stooges album ever made. Right? They just rock so hard because they do the foundation of Funhouse is something of raw power, which is just showing how hard a band could possibly go. I think Iggy Pop's looking at the face of death and just saying, how hard can you possibly take it until it's just too much? And there's just so many highlights going on here, such as I Need Somebody, which is just some of the most insane work I've ever heard in my life. And it just shows all kinds of stuff. Oh man, jeez, it's a foreshadow. It's not on this album, but it's a foreshadow to that song reflecting on how mad this album is, which sounds like a mad carnival. You're like in a mad circus, and you're just portraying something very like psychedelic and blues all at the same time, and going way grittier than anything ever to come before or after. Like I said, this was probably the album that has the most influence from Alice Cooper and the Doors particularly, but I really love how Iggy Pop expresses this thing, and I kind of quite love Alice Cooper as a person. I certainly, I do love a lot of songs, but I think the Stooges, I like take it even more raw. It's even more personal. The Doors I recognize that they're pretty great what they lay out, but they are. I think that sometimes it feels a little corny. It's almost like how My Chemical Romance is, where I'm coming to it for fun, I would say, rather than like just all the time. I think this is a little more of an all the time kind of band, the Stooges. It always like kind of, the world can always feel like there's always hell around you as much as there's heaven. Just to embrace the hell and recognize and understand it is what brings closer to heaven. God, so it's the Stooges to bring it to you, man. Raw power is just to feel fearless in the face of hell, because you can be above hell by feeling these kind of emotions. And it's kind of something transcendent about this. So it's like aggressive, and it takes some like boogie and funk and soul just going in, and it just moves right and makes you want to just jiggy, man. Because it's aggressive, but it just doesn't go over the top at all. I mean, the feeling here is just something that only the Stooges can do, because it really is just 100 times better than AC/DC Guns N' Roses combined, dude. Because this is just way heavier, way more to the point in expression. Because this is like looking at the face of death, and just metal, being an outcast in society, and sort of just feeling above it in those moments. Pretentious, but you have to. This is the least pretentious sound of pretentiousness I've ever heard in my life. That's maybe what makes the Stooges so special. I think they are. Like Iggy Pop is a pretentious man, but perhaps he wears it like it's like how David Bowie is. It's just cool the way he's pretentious. David Bowie. I think I'm still digesting the brilliance of David Bowie. Because I think he might be so genius. I'm still like, I've had many phases where I'm quite obsessed with him. Maybe a lot of questions are me as why. It almost seems like he's a man. He represents something unique. I think certainly another psychological spirit of rock and roll. The Stooges are just more raw. I'll probably see David Bowie as the better in the end. I can't wait to talk to David Bowie. I don't think I'm saying, geez, that's one. But it's very, personal to everybody. So I think it's almost intimidating to talk about. David Bowie. He's intimidating. Always is and always will be intimidating. Stooges. Shake appeal. It's just like so loud and sloppy that you just got to go with it. Again, Death Trip. It's like this is just like 7 minutes of just like it's gonna feel bad to begin with. This feels like the ultimate closer for the band, but my God, just embrace how it feels, because it feels so freaking good. It's even better than like when LA Blues is. I mean, Death Trip just hits the soul and makes me so happy to be alive. It's just more self-titled track of raw power, which is just what it is to feel energetic and embracing the moment. Iggy Pop just expresses this sort of so perfectly. This is perfect. I mean, it perfectly expresses rock and punk all at the same time. Yeah, it just kind of makes you not overthink being perfect. Literally, it's the ultimate expression of just do it, man. Just get it out and do yourself, do your thing, and stay good in the spirit. But get it out in your own kind of way. It's just raw, speedy. It's ultimately very fast paced and will, irritate your neighbors if you play it. You gotta have the headphones and listen to it openly. So it's not a transcendent experience. The Stooges are transcendent. The best way of hard rock. In the hard rock era I've ever heard. The next to classic rock, this is more alive. Like, sometimes the slow stuff can just feel like sitting in a traffic jam by comparison to this. It just feels like so free spirited, literally. And that's the Stooges, man. I mean, they're the best. So they're one of the best bands of all time. And then they didn't make any more albums all the way up to the year 2007. I mean, Iggy Pop did some miscellaneous solo work, which is quite awesome. I mean, the album, Lust for Life, golly. But yeah, of course, he was right with David Bowie because he went through that, intense drug addiction. So he had to meet with David Bowie to kind of cleanse up a little bit with everything going on. So that's the importance of going on there, especially in David Bowie. Seeing like dark nihilism. The years like late 70s are extremely fit. It's the most psychologically deep, years of all time because it is kind of to have the dark side of a god complex was really in the air. I could see how a lot of them were expressing that. But the Stooges were certainly past their prime in the year 2007. Because this is like 4 years later, so it's to be expected. I mean, it kind of ends up feeling like how Red Hot Chili Peppers are in like 2000s, early 2010s, where it's just like, okay, this energetic feeling is stale, you could say, but it came perfect at a certain moment in time for a person. And this is what it is to realize you're going to lose it. But the previous albums have been like what it is to have had it, but they'll lose it. And this is what it is to be timeless. I mean, it takes the foundation of just kind of reflecting on what it is to feel like a masterpiece and to feel like a legend of feeling in a certain way in spirit. It's like of course, the Chris McCandless influence of the year 2007 right here. It's just like to not to be alive, but to feel alive, which is certainly a very dated notion. I think a lot of artists, this happened to somebody in the 60s and 70s, in the 80s. Like you moved to the 90s and something became dated, I think the 90s kind of broke a lot that came from the 80s, in the 70s in a certain kind of way. A little bit more of a straight to the point, a little more of an anxious knowing of getting there. While I think the 90s were kind of out to understand that and get we're kind of getting the last dubs of that and trying to grasp what a lot of that is in the 2000s forward. That's the thing about the Stooges is sometimes it's funny, it's silly, but sometimes it feels dumb. But it's just ultimately having what it is to feel like you're having a good time in youthful spirit. Because the dumb is like Richard Linklater's portrayal of like dumb. It feels like Days of Confused. Everybody wants it. It's just ultimately it's good spirited. You don't need to be frustrated by like the little things that come around, and expressionism, because this is true to the spirit, and it's not, hurting anything. It's expressing in the utmost intensity at Mother Nature, the best kind of way, which never will get old. It's always insane in its own kind of way, and it fits in perfectly with society. It's perfect, That's Iggy Pop. That's the Stooges. I love this band so much. I highly recommend it. I haven't listened to the album Ready to Die in the year 2013. It sounds very cheesy from the bits of sample I've heard. That's the Stooges are. Yeah, they have the definition of feeling like a badass. You gotta feel that way for yourself. So the Stooges put a finger directly to it in the best kind of cool way. I highly recommend this band to anybody. Really, the ultimate foundation of any feeling inside. It's hard to talk about, but when you get to feel it inside, it'll come out permanently in a really, really beautiful kind of way. That's the Stooges. That's Iggy Pop, man. You're a genius band. A genius sound. Not by way of being perfect, but by way of breaking the rules in the coolest way since Bob Dylan. Yeah, that's the Stooges. Awesome, man.